Your partnership with NVIDIA is key. NVIDIA owns about 6% of the company, and they ended up picking up, we've heard, $250 million of the $1.5 billion of this offering. How key is that partnership, and are we right in our understanding of that?
Yeah, so NVIDIA is an extraordinary partner for us. They are an extraordinary company. They're building technology that is moving the world forward. We really, really appreciate their support. We are really excited to be part of the solution that drives technology to help bring the most performant configuration of that technology to the clients that consume their hardware, that consume our product. They've been great for us.
If you are looking at where you expect to be, let's say 2 years from now, 5 years from now, what's your outlook?
Yeah, look, we've got a business model. We've got a client set. We've got the most sophisticated, demanding consumers of this infrastructure in the world. These are the companies that will change the way that we function, right, and the way businesses function. Our job as a company is to really remain on the bleeding edge of this technology, to continue to scale, to build a global business that's able to fulfill the needs of this seismic change that's occurring around the world.
CoreWeave rents data centers from Related. Right. Blackstone is an investor, or I should say, extends credit to them, right. An important. NVIDIA obviously is their key customer of that relationship. The key one. But we still get back to that idea of the depreciation schedule for the chips, the overall value or lifespan of a GPU, right. And you hear different things. You know, when it comes to training models, I hear, well, maybe it is only a couple of years, but for inference, which is where everything is moving, these things can last 5 or 6 years, and so the current depreciation schedule may be appropriate. My understanding is the contracts that they sign, there is not an expectation you're going to upgrade the GPUs over the time. You put in what is available at that point.
What is a Blackwell worth if you get a Vera Rubin?
Right.
And that's why when I have him on tonight, Michael and Trader, I am going to spend most of my time talking about depreciation.
But that said, I want to get to this as a larger issue, because I did raise this yesterday, the depreciation issue in terms of the lifespan of a GPU. And your friend Jensen Huang did not help us with his comments last week, Jim. And I did want to play them because they've been repeated to me many times, where he basically said Hopper is worthless. He sort of made a joke around it.
He was making a joke.
Take a listen for yourself.
I said before that when Blackwell starts shipping in volume, you couldn't give Hoppers away. There are circumstances where Hopper is fine. That's the best thing I could say about Hopper. There are circumstances where you're fine. Not many. If I had to take a swing. And so that's kind of my point. When the technology is moving this fast, and because the workload is so intense and you're building these things, they're factories, we really like you to invest in the right versions.
That did sound like a joke to me.
No, it was a joke because he didn't mean to freeze the market. He would tell you, look, we've got the CUDA software, we've got this incredible business. People are taking everything they can.
This is going to be a continued question.
I thought it was tongue-in-cheek.
Well, listening to it in context, I felt like he's saying, I mean, he wants you to think they're worthless, so you'll step up and buy the new ones, but it is an overall question as to what they're worth. That said, it's going to figure prominently in terms of how investors approach this company. They spend an enormous amount on CapEx. They have a lot of debt, but that said, they can build in cash flows over time, Carl, with that. Basically, as long as the demand is there and they can keep building and have access to those GPUs. So it's going to be a fascinating day to watch how this thing opens.
And you made the point, both of you, that because there are so few public pure plays, actually most of them, this is going to be the window we have.
Yeah, what's a shame is that 10 days ago, this thing would have been going at a premium. But the data center, I think the talks of its death are premature, but just in the last 10 days, it's almost as if, because Joe Tsai, we have Microsoft allegedly canceling, it just all went away. And I think it's somewhere in between. Not going away, but there was too much.
You did write this morning that the whole story could change in 1 week.
Yes,
is extraordinary.
Yes, it can.
I mean, listen, you know, when you look at what OpenAI was saying, even yesterday, Sam Altman, about that new image that new image bot they have in terms of, and they didn't have enough. They were burning out chips already,
Look,
and
the
so that
computers,
they need even more demand. I was just making sure.
If you want a robot to make your bed and do your dishes, you're gonna need more compute.
Yeah,
and I sure do. I want them washing the so I washed the dishes today at like 4 a.m. and I'm thinking, where's my robot?
Did you leave them from the night before?
Shh, my wife's not around.
You bought more NVIDIA.
I did.
The relationship this company and NVIDIA obviously is tied at the hip. You bought more.
Yeah, I bought it not because of the core weave, but because of my general.
Stock's traded bad. NVIDIA has.
Yes, it traded terribly, and now it trades at almost 23 times forward earnings for a stock. I know I do this every time. Growing earnings per share at 50%. That's to me a bargain. Now, if we're going to have a recession, okay, this trade will look poor. However, I've already said multiple times, I think we are doing a retest of the bottom in a correction. It always feels worse when this happens, especially when you retest. If it turns out, Scott, I'm wrong, and this is much worse than a correction, then I'll have to take risk off.
Malcolm, you bought more NVIDIA as well.
I did. I think this is a great positioning point for anybody who's missed this, like myself, to this point, 109, 110. For a company that was up at 148 or so at its most recent high. So we're talking about a severe discount right now at a time when the company hasn't really lost a whole lot of strength. It's lost momentum, sure, but it hasn't lost a whole lot of strength, right? They're still looking at something like a 2-to-1 ratio between receivables and assets on their books. And so until that relationship inverts, that's really the only thing that I would care too much about in the short term as a shareholder.
We have a lot more moves to get to.
What is going on with kind of the bear case around AI compute lately?
Yeah. So it's clearly had a tough start to the year, and most of the AI names are down pretty materially after a couple of stellar years in 23 and 24. I think there's a few things that are going on. There is the broader macro and tariffs and everything. And so there's been a broader de-risking or degrossing, which has hit them because some of them had higher multiples. And so those have come in. I think beyond that, though, there are concerns about, peak AI CapEx, like can 2026 still be a growth year? And part of that is just the numbers have gotten so big so quickly. You wonder. In fact, these worries have been around since the day this started. But they're starting to get a little more steam. You hear, rumors about lease cancellations and other things. And I would say, as of right now, the only ones that seem to be really worried about it are the investors. The companies that are out there actually doing the spending, it still seems like it's full steam ahead, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because
any signs of actual like CapEx numbers coming down. NVIDIA had their GTC event last week. I thought it was pretty positive.
And even
but the investors are clearly worried.
From a user point of view, and again, I'm just one tiny little data point, but I use this stuff more than ever. And the companies, they're locked in these races where every single day they're leapfrogging one another. So that's what I'm trying to understand as well.
Yeah, like the whole DeepSeek thing, like caused a lot of angst. And it was sort of related to that. It was this idea that, where you can get really effective models that don't require as much compute, so that must be bad. And again, I'm everybody's throwing around Jevons paradox and like whatever. But I'm biased. I'm a semi guy. I am of the belief that cost reduction in general is good, that it does drive demand. That's been true in semiconductors for 5 or 6 decades. And frankly, ever since DeepSeek launched, all we've seen is compute demand go up. Right, we've seen CapEx numbers go up. We've heard stories of GPU shortages in China and everywhere else as they're starting to deploy this stuff. It does actually look like it's driving demand. It's not curtailing.
And you still have an outperform 185 price target on NVIDIA, at least as of a few weeks ago. Could it be the macro, Stacey? I mean, obviously, semis are one of the leading indicators for the. So, if we're talking about a spending slump and, the last guest talking about recession, I mean, could it be as simple as that?
Well, I think that's part of it. And again, that degrossing I kind of talked about, so far this year, it's very much related to macro. And semis in general, I mean, the very first chart I drew as an analyst almost 20 years ago was, year-over-year growth of semiconductors versus worldwide GDP growth. And it's a pretty straight line, right? So that correlation is pretty high. And in a recession, semiconductors in general tend not to do all that well. I might suggest that some of the spending on AI, particularly where it relates to productivity savings, and cost reductions and things like that actually may prove to be a little more resilient in a recessionary environment than some of the other like more discretionary spending.
Right, I've heard
of cases.
We'll
have to see.
Right, or maybe even ramped up because if you replace labor with chips, basically.
Maybe.
I don't know which is more expensive at this point. Stacey, appreciate it.
All right, I hope you're all doing well today and staying calm in this market. Today was a rough day throughout the market with the S&P finishing the day about 2% lower and NVIDIA finishing the day about 1.6% lower. There are a few reasons for the market selling off today. First, of course, is the looming threat of tariffs next week. And this morning, Core PCE came in slightly hotter than expected, and consumer inflation expectations came in higher than expected as well. Remember that PCE is the Fed's preferred metric for gauging inflation. Both PCE and the Consumer Sentiment Report this morning added fuel to the fire as the market sold off. The market is bracing for reciprocal tariffs next week on April 2nd. Remember that when the president was recently asked if tariffs on other industries like pharmaceuticals and chips would be announced on April 2nd, he said, quote, "Not then." This means we may get news about those tariffs sometime after April 2nd. In the meantime, market participants are not happy about the tariff situation. As for NVIDIA, this company's fundamentals remain strong both from a financial and technological standpoint. In the short term, though, we have to get through this storm of negative headlines and macroeconomic uncertainty in order for the stock to move higher. I don't know how long that will take, and I don't know where the bottom is. If NVIDIA were to trade lower toward $100 or even $90 per share, I would most likely consider adding more exposure to the stock because I think the long-term picture remains strong. On that note, I want to briefly address the CoreWeave situation. So today, CoreWeave went public with NVIDIA reportedly anchoring the IPO at $40 per share. CoreWeave essentially rents NVIDIA GPUs to their customers, and CoreWeave has a lot of debt. While I am bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA, I personally do not want to invest in CoreWeave. And even if I were considering investing, I personally do not like to buy stocks immediately after the company goes public. I would rather wait a while and let the hype around the IPO die down before considering an investment. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing my honest opinion. As for NVIDIA, I'm still optimistic about the company's next two earnings reports, as Blackwell earnings should start to show up in a substantial way, and because at one of the next two earnings reports, we should get next quarter guidance with margins back in the mid-70s. At NVIDIA's last earnings call, they guided for slightly lower margins during the current quarter because they're spending money to expedite the manufacturing of Blackwell. But later this year, once Blackwell has ramped, NVIDIA expects margins to return to the mid-70s. Now, if the market were calm right now and we weren't dealing with macro uncertainty, I would be considering a swing trade in NVIDIA ahead of earnings in May. However, with the current situation in the broader market and with the potential for news regarding the AI diffusion rule and export controls in May, I'm more hesitant about adding any swing trade positions right now. Maybe that will change in the weeks ahead, but for right now, I'm in more of a wait and see mode when it comes to swing positions. I'm still bullish on the future of NVIDIA from a long-term perspective. The hyperscalers are ordering Blackwell this year substantially more than they ordered Hopper in 2024. NVIDIA has a competitive moat across both hardware and software that no other company is close to breaching. NVIDIA is delivering substantial performance improvements, including a 40x to AI factory revenue when clients upgrade from Hopper to Blackwell. And we have a clear data center product roadmap stretching through 2028 with a new product launch each year. And so in the short term, we have to get through this moment of uncertainty in the broader market, as well as some negative headlines related to NVIDIA and AI more broadly. Even so, I still think that the long-term thesis surrounding NVIDIA remains intact. We just have to get past some short-term speed bumps first. At least that's my view of the situation. Remember to stay calm in this market. Remember to maintain a long-term perspective and do not make any hasty or irrational decisions. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.